It's a common belief, isn't it, that when it comes to global trade, especially with economic superpowers, smaller nations like ours are often, well, at a disadvantage, forced to accept whatever terms come our way. We often feel like we're constantly squeezed, watching every ringgit. But sometimes, just sometimes, that whole narrative gets flipped, completely flipped on its head. And for Malaysia, what we've just seen with the United States, it's a major kind of unexpected turn, really could reshape things for our exports. Just last week, I was actually talking to a furniture maker down in Johor. He was so worried, I mean, really worried about that 25% tariff, asking how his business could even survive. He said it felt like walking a tightrope, just this constant uphill battle to compete. And honestly, many Malaysian businesses, many of us really, had braced for the worst, maybe even an increase given all the talk the shifts anticipated for months. But today, well, the picture looks surprisingly different, refreshingly different, actually. So what do you make of this situation? What's your take? What does this really mean for Malaysia? Okay, let's unpack the main news here. As of August 1st, 2025, the U.S. has officially cut the tariff on Malaysian exports. It's going down from that hefty 25% down to 19%. This new rate, signed off by U.S. President Donald Trump, applies pretty quick to goods entering the U.S. for consumption within 7 days of landing. Now, this wasn't totally out of the blue. People in trade circles kind of expected something, given the tariff war talk that's been building up. But the number itself, 19%, that's the headline. And it hits goods entering the U.S. market, very few exceptions. That quick application, the 7 days, it means market prices adjust almost immediately. No lingering under old rates.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating, I think, is the response from Malaysian leaders. It's been remarkably unified, quite positive across the board. Investment, Trade and Industry Minister Tengku Zafrul Abdulaziz, he's been right out front, hailing this 19% as a, quote, significant achievement. He really stressed it was secured through a thorough and methodical negotiating process. That's the language he used. And crucially, he made the point that it was done without compromising Malaysia's sovereign right to implement its key economic policies, for stability and growth.
Right, that sovereignty point seems key.
Absolutely. And Zafrul also framed it as reflecting the high degree of Malaysia-U.S. complementarity in trade and investment for over 60 years. So highlighting that long relationship. These talks, just for context, they weren't short. Started back on May 6th, wrapped up July 31st, a solid couple of months of presumably intense discussion.
And here's where it really hits home, especially for places like Penang. The chief minister there, Chow Kan Yao, he didn't mince words, called it a positive move, straight up. He sees it directly boosting competitiveness for Penang's key sectors, electronics, manufacturing, medical devices, all crucial stuff. And he's already looking forward, isn't he? Pushing the federal government for even more concessions in areas vital for Penang shows the immediate impact people see.
Exactly. And if you connect that to the sort of broader political narrative, well, leaders in Pakatan Harapan are definitely presenting this as a win. You have Democratic Action Party's National Policy Director Chan Foong Hin and People's Justice Party MP Sim Sezin. They're pointing to this as clear proof of Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim's capability and strategy. That's the framing. They're highlighting the relief, the breathing room it gives industries. Rubber gloves, furniture makers like the one you mentioned, giving them a more level playing field with ASEAN neighbors. Sim Sezin even had that lighthearted comment about Anwar working his charm on the phone call with Trump.
Ah, yeah, I saw that.
But the underlying message is serious. This reduction helps Malaysia keep its competitive edge. And they tie it back to fundamentals, rule of law, stability, infrastructure, our educated workforce. It's presented as diplomacy leveraging our strengths, which naturally brings us to the big question many people are asking online and elsewhere. What was the cost? What did Malaysia give up for this? Because, negotiations always involve some give and take. According to the official statements, there were some specific concessions made by Malaysia. These include considering the recognition of U.S. halal certification mechanisms. That's one point. And also a commitment to cooperate on rare earth resource exports.
Ah, the rare earths. That's
It
significant.
really is. Malaysia has, huge reserves, over 16 million tons, estimated value around 1 trillion ringgit. That's roughly, 210 billion U.S. dollars? Huge numbers. But right now, because we lack the advanced processing tech here, most of it gets exported primarily to China for refining. So this cooperation with the U.S. on rare earths, it's not just about selling raw materials.
Sure.
It can be a strategic shift. Well, cooperating with the U.S. could mean diversifying our processing partners, maybe moving away from relying so heavily on one country. It signals perhaps a more balanced geopolitical stance on critical resources. And long term, You could potentially see U.S. investment coming into Malaysia to build up those processing capabilities right here. That would be a game changer for how we actually profit from this wealth.
Okay, that's a really interesting angle. But what's equally important, and you hear the government stressing this point loud and clear, is what they didn't give up. Prime Minister Anwar reportedly stood firm on certain red lines, as they called them. He emphasized, apparently very strongly, that Malaysia wouldn't compromise on core national interests. And they specifically mentioned policies like the Bumi Putera equity quotas and other key economic frameworks.
Yes, and for listeners who might not be familiar, those Bumiputera equity quotas are essentially affirmative action policies designed to support the Malay majority and other indigenous groups economically. Holding on to those, even in tough trade talks with the U.S., really shows Malaysia sticking to a specific socioeconomic model, protecting domestic priorities, basically.
It's a balancing act, isn't it? International trade versus internal policy.
Absolutely. And related to that, the Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry also said they'll be working closely with Bank Negara Malaysia, our central bank. They want to properly assess the full impact of this 19% tariff on GDP, get the real numbers. And they're still encouraging exporters, use Malaysia's existing free trade agreements. We have 18 of them. And diversify markets. Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Right, build resilience, good strategy.
Exactly.
Okay, now let's dive into something that's been buzzing online, this whole comparison game. How does Malaysia's deal stack up against what other countries supposedly paid or what they're facing? There's definitely a strong narrative going around that Malaysia, well, maybe got off relatively lightly, even though 19% is still, a chunk of change.
I've seen that discussion too.
Like, there's this popular view comparing us to, say, South Korea. The story is they had to commit to a massive, $350 billion US dollar investment just to get their tariff down from 25 to 15%.
That's a huge figure, if accurate. A massive commitment.
Right. And then you hear analysts looking at Vietnam, Indonesia, the Philippines. They also got the 19% rate, same as us. But the suggestion is they made much bigger, maybe more painful concessions. Some reports even say they agreed to completely eliminate tariffs on U.S. goods coming into their countries.
Wow.
Yeah, which some critics are calling, pretty bluntly, kneeling to Washington.
Yes.
Basically opening up their markets way more. Quite a contrast to Malaysia holding on to those red lines.
Definitely a contrast.
And then you've got Taiwan at 20%. And maybe the biggest surprise, Canada, a close U.S. ally, their tariff actually went up from 25 to 35%.
Yeah, that raised eyebrows.
And some people are trying to link that to Canada's stance on recognizing Palestine, though. Who knows if that's the real reason?
It's all speculation, but the comparisons are being made. And this context, I think, really highlights why the Malaysian outcome is being framed as such a success from our side. 19% is still a duty, no doubt. But when you look at the reported price, other countries might be paying for similar or even smaller reductions or facing increases. Malaysia's approach looks quite strategic. Diplomatic engagement plus these specific managed concessions like on halal certification and rare earths, while protecting fundamental policies like the Bumiputera quotas. Well, many see it as a very carefully navigated, advantageous result. It suggests some pretty savvy negotiation.
So, okay, that's the official side and the comparisons. But what about the general public? What are people saying online? What's the netizen reaction?
Scrolling through comments, it's a real mixed bag, as you'd expect. On one hand, you see a definite wave of positivity, a lot of support. People are saying things like, this government really makes me feel like it's doing something concrete for the country. That's a direct quote I saw. And lots of, thank you, Prime Minister Anwar. This result is acceptable. The government did a good job. Comments like, Anwar is the best. Support Anwar. Hard work, PM and unity government leaders. Many seem to feel that getting any reduction in this climate is good, calling the result acceptable and saying the government did well this time. It's clear approval from many.
Right. But then you always have the other side, the more skeptical voices, the acidic netizens, as they're sometimes called. They're jumping in with questions like, okay, but what was the actual cost? Dare to announce it clearly.
Yep, saw those too. Or, did we need to exchange something significant for this? There's that suspicion. Some are even being a bit satirical, joking, is 19% because Anwar can't make it halal anymore, playing on the halal certification point.
Okay.
But the serious undercurrent is there. What were the hidden costs? Why isn't it lower? Why not 0%? You see comments like, what did they sell out? Or what conditions did we trade for? And simpler ones like, still very high. Or just questioning What did they contribute?
Hmm.
There's even a sentiment from some critics saying something like, despite the PM being seen as capable, the outcome is only like this, implying they expected something much better, perhaps.
Interesting. And then that connects to another point I saw popping up a lot online. Many commentators are saying this news kind of, well, it slaps the face, that's the phrase used,
Right.
of those who argued Malaysia's foreign policy choices would backfire with the U.S. You know, that I talk about embracing China, supporting Palestine or Iran, exploring BRICS. The prediction was higher tariffs.
Yes, that was a common argument from critics.
Yeah. But the counter argument now is, look, Trump's a businessman. It came down to business, not geopolitics. As one netizen put it quite sharply, this news today really slaps the face of those who have been criticizing Anwar and this government for a long time. And they added, I've already told everyone, this Trump is a businessman. He doesn't talk about national interests with you. He only wants to do business. It's a fascinating take on how trade and politics intersect. Or maybe don't in this case.
It really is interesting watching how the public digests all this.
Oh.
The success narrative, getting the reduction from 25 to 19%, is definitely being amplified by government supporters,
Right.
especially when put next to what other countries are reportedly conceding.
Yeah.
But for the critics, yeah, the focus shifts immediately to the price. Was it too high? What wasn't revealed? And how does this position Malaysia going forward? It just underscores that ongoing tension, doesn't it, between national sovereignty, economic reality, and geopolitical maneuvering in this very interconnected world we live in.
Absolutely. Ultimately, this tariff change, it isn't just some number on a page. It really is a testament to, well, ongoing diplomacy, strategic negotiation in what's clearly a complex global trade game. Whether you see it as a hard-won victory for Malaysia or maybe a shrewd business deal for both sides or somewhere in between, it definitely reshapes our immediate trade outlook, sets a new tone.